Welcome back. Sarah is here now to get us thinking outside of the planter when it comes to planters. And Sarah, I can't wait to see your ideas for this because whatever it is, I know it's going to be pretty and it's going to be perfect.
Well, thank you. You know, I love the idea of sourcing items that you have around your home for planters because it's a sustainable option. You're not going out shopping, and it's just, again, it's really good for your budget. It's good for the planet. So I shopped my home. Believe it or not, all of these things were in my house. So I've got ideas for every type of plant and every type of home. And there's three things though that you want to keep in mind when you're looking for something around your house. I'm going to use this plant as an example. It's a beauty. So the container that you're looking for should definitely be at least the depth of the soil in the pot that you get from your garden center, right? Because you don't want the soil hanging over the top and spilling when you water it. You want there to be some wood there for root growth. And then you also want to test it and make sure it doesn't leak, especially if you're going to have your plants in your house. So the easiest way to do that is to find a container, fill it with water, set it in another larger container or in your sink, and just observe it for a few hours and see if there's any leakage. So, I mean, if you're going to use them outside, it's not as big a deal, but if you're setting it on your dining room table, that's not a risk that you want to take, right?
Absolutely. And that's really smart to do the test beforehand. And then once it's past all of those requirements, you can use pretty much anything. Like, what have you found around your house that worked?
Okay, well, I wanted to find options, again, that work inside, outside, for large and small spaces. And the interesting thing is this year, too, if you go to your local garden center, you're going to find out that there isn't the same selection that we're used to. Again, because of COVID, their business has had to adapt. So what I learned when I was at Sheridan Nurseries is that tropicals and herbs are a really, really big trend this year, and they have a really good selection of that. So it's something fun and new to try if you haven't worked with those before. But I want to start with an item here, a cookie jar. Do you have any of these kicking around the house?
I do, and the one that comes to mind is actually the dog's biscuit jar that we never use because we're just like, it's just so pretty. I should really be using that for a planter. It's a great idea.
You know what's great about cookie jars is that they've got a nice wide opening, so it's great for putting the plants in place, and it's great for expansion for them as well. I'm just going to pop this one in there so you can see how pretty it is. So it's a really, really nice option, and then you can set that on your counter instead of a jar full of cookies.
Instead of eating more cookies, you just smell the beautiful flowers. It's also a weight loss plan. It's amazing, Sarah.
It's a win-win. Okay, so I love vintage. I've got lots of little pretty delicate dishes around the house, and those make really, really sweet planters. I've got a few here, and I just love them for smaller, little sweet things. They'd be great on a bedside table, on a windowsill, or back when we can eventually entertain again. They'd be so pretty on a place setting for a table. And even like a sugar dish or something, if you can find a shallow plant, that would be really pretty too. I also love tins for the same reason. This is a vintage one that I've had for years. But the only tip that I want to share with this is that you don't want to set it in direct sunlight because if it gets really hot, that could affect the plant, right? Now I'm going to bring you over here. This is probably my favorite. So I wanted to find an option for people who have patios and no backyards because normally you think roses can only grow when you plant them in a garden, and that's usually true. But these beauties here are really hardy and they can be planted in a pot. The only tip is you want to have one that's about 2 sizes larger than the plant itself so it has some room to grow. And I just love the idea that, people sitting on their patio can still enjoy flowers as if they had a big backyard.
So beautiful.
Another great idea, and so easy, is just get an oversized pedestal bowl. Could be a centerpiece on your dining room table or something that you have by the front door. The one thing that I want you to keep in mind with this is that you want to have lots of depth. A shallow bowl is not going to work for this because the plants aren't going to have room to grow and be happy. All right. Now, Trace, do you have any of these kicking around? These little utensil caddies that you use, for backyard entertaining?
Yeah, for sure. So those are, they're really good if you've got to drag stuff in and out and in and out. I like how you're using them though.
Well, again, I knew this one was okay to be waterproof because I used it as a poutine topping bar last year. But it's great for herbs. I absolutely love it. It's double-sided. It can go indoors or out, and it's so easy to plant. And I want to show you now how to plant something. It's the same for every single different container that I've showed you so far. Is the same as what I'm going to show you now, and it's so simple. So what you want to start are with some really small rocks for drainage as the bottom layer. And if this were a bigger container, these are quite small, I would start layering a little bit of soil before I put the plant in, but this is kind of small, so I did it backwards, okay? So you remove your plant from the store-bought container, and you're gonna loosen up the roots a little bit in here, and then you're just gonna pop it in place, and then using potting soil, just fill in. I'm making such a mess in my dining room right now. Normally I would do this outside, although I did it outside. I started it outside the other day and found out there was a possum sitting within like 3 feet of me, so I may never go in my backyard again. But anyways, terrifying. And then you just water it. You're good to go. And hopefully you won't get any possums near you while you're doing it.
That is so good. I'm just imagining you out there doing your project and the little animals standing by just watching, waiting to get in there. It's adorable and terrifying. This has given us good food for thought. It's time for a quick break.